Hi guys, retrostitchgaming back with another video on games you may have missed.
Not so long back we did a video on 5 classic survival horror games for the PS2 that people may have missed, and the video went down really well. It's one of our favourite videos we've done so far, and a lot of people did seem to find games that they had no idea about, or if they'd heard about and not played, so that's what we were trying to do with that video, and we're really glad that people enjoyed it.
And in this video we're going to be doing the same again with another 5 games, this time spread over different and various consoles.
And they will be survival horror again. So, without further ado,
let's get into the video.
Yes.
For our first game we have Condemned, an Xbox 360 launch title.
This game is a real, psychological roller coaster. In this game, you're like an FBI agent, and you've got to search and find a serial killer who's been doing a load of gruesome murders. It's a first-person survival horror game as well. It's really fun, and it does have quite a bit of jumpy scares in it. It's very secluded in a grimy, gritty sort of area. It's a really good game.
So definitely not the game for me.
Like we said, the game is played in first person, which works really well with the rundown and decaying environments and the dark, tight, claustrophobic areas of the game, and really adds a lot of fear and tension. A lot of the combat in the game is up close and personal and fought with melee items such as wooden planks, fire axes and crowbars, with the heavier items serving a dual purpose as they can also open areas. All the melee weapons are rated on swing speed, blocking power, reach and damage. Guns are obtainable but are limited to the amount of rounds they have. You are also armed with a taser to fall back on if needed, which has an unlimited use. Just be careful though, as it takes time to recharge. The combat can be very intense and brutal. It can be hard to get the hang of to start with too, but it definitely adds to the constant feeling of being vulnerable that this game gives you. The game can be quite slow paced and does have some flaws, but it's definitely worth checking out for your horror fans. It's pretty cheap and also has a sequel on the Xbox 360.
Next up we have Alan Wake, a psychological thriller.
This is also an exclusive for the Xbox 360. We're absolutely huge fans of the Xbox 360, aren't we? It's a great console. But this game is brilliant. It's got such an eerie atmosphere, and it's got constant cliffhangers and plot twists the whole way through, and it really feels like you're watching some sort of psychological thriller, doesn't it?
Always keeps you guessing.
Yeah, it does. It's brilliant. It's a really good game that we'd definitely recommend. It's not quite all survival horror. It has got a lot of action adventure style as well, but I'd still say it is quite a horror game, isn't it? It's quite scary and good.
I'd personally put it as a hidden gem, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a great game. So what's this game about then? Well, basically the story follows Alan Wake, a best-selling thriller novelist, who for the past couple of years has been struggling with writer's block. He and his wife Alice travel to a small town called Bright Falls for a vacation to try and relax and get back on track with his writing. Before arriving, Alan has been struggling with nightmares. On arrival, he goes to pick up the keys for the cabin in a lake they'll be staying in from the landlord, but instead is given them by a mysterious, creepy old woman. Shortly after arriving at the cabin, his wife is dragged into the water by a mysterious force. After jumping in to try and save her, Alan blacks out and doesn't regain consciousness until a week later. When he tries to report it to the police, they tell him there hasn't been a cabin on that lake for years. As he tries to unravel the mysteries of what's happening, he starts to experience plots from the latest book coming to life. The only problem is he can't remember writing this book. In the game, a darkness is taking over humans, animals and objects. These enemies are dubbed the Taken and can be only harmed when in the light, which puts a huge significant emphasis on using a flashlight alongside your gun. You must also look for light sources to remain safe and keep out of harm. I can't recommend this game enough. It's just so much fun and the story is so well written and put together, and it is one hell of a unique experience.
Next up, we have Eternal Darkness for the GameCube. This was only a GameCube exclusive, so therefore not a lot of people may have heard about it or have had the chance to play it, which is such a shame.
This game's really fun. It's a great game. It's not really something you'd expect to find on a Nintendo system. It was one of the only horror games on the GameCube. Obviously you had all the Resident Evil games that come out on there, but other than that there wasn't a lot.
Oh no, wait, I think you were actually missing Luigi's Mansion, because that was pretty terrifying.
Oh yeah. The player initially searches the game's main hub, the Roivas family estate, for a book called the Tome of Eternal Darkness. After reading it, the narrative of the game's story switches between two phases. The main phase focuses on a series of chapters in which players take control of a new character each time. The story takes place over 4 locations, which the game skips back and forth between. They include an underground temple called the Forbidden City in Persia, a temple in Cambodia, a cathedral in France, and the Roivas family estate in Rhode Island, which also leads to an ancient underground city underneath the very mansion itself. Each time a location is visited, it is done so in a different time period, spanning from 26 BC all the way to 2000 AD, almost half of which takes place in the 20th century. Each different era and character offers a different periodic and personal perspective on the location. One of my favourite things about this game is the insanity meter, which can be lowered by enemies and things that scare the character, causing strange things to start happening such as whispers, laughter, crying, loud footsteps and banging doors, as well as hallucinations. The game also targets you, the player, as it will do things like make your controller stop working, turn your volume down, or pretend to delete your save file to try and mess with your very own sanity meter. I can't recommend this game enough. It's a really unique game and future horror games took quite a lot from it, and it's such a shame a lot of people missed out on this game because of it being a GameCube exclusive.
Next up we have Call of Cthulhu for the original Xbox. This game was massively overlooked.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't find out about this game, and it's only really seems to be a lot of people talking about it over the last few years, and the price is steadily starting to go up for this game. Luckily we've had it for quite a while, but it's a great game, another first-person survival horror game. But this is like one of the first games that I can really remember playing with like your more stealth added to it. It's like a run and hide sort of horror game, you know, like your Outlast and your Amnesia, that sort of style of survival horror. This is like one of the first games I can remember doing that. So it's really great, and obviously a lot of more modern games have probably took things from this survival horror game.
Shit scary as well.
Yeah, it can be quite scary. It's a bit slow to start with, but you've got to stick with it because it gets really good once you get into it.
Juicy.
The game is based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft. The game is mostly set in the year 1922 and follows the story of Jack Walters, a mentally unstable private detective hired to investigate Innsmouth, a strange and mysterious city that has cut itself off from the rest of the US. The initial gameplay consists of escape and evade tactics, mixed with investigating and exploration. I love this in horror games as it makes you feel so much more vulnerable and powerless, and is why games like Outlast and Amnesia are so terrifying. FPS style combat is introduced later in the game, and as usual in survival horrors, ammunition is limited. You must learn to really conserve it in these games though, as a lot of the time you must try and avoid enemies when even armed, to have the ammo available at the right times. The game also has no heads up display to know your condition. You must instead rely on the sound and condition of your breathing and heartbeat. Colour also drains from the screen with loss of blood and strength. Your injuries are also seen and heard. For example, with a broken leg you will limp and make noise, and a broken arm makes it harder to aim. Like in a few survival horror games, you also have a sanity meter which decreases if you see disturbing images, which can lead to hearing and seeing things. The game is not without its flaws and can be a little buggy in places, but it's definitely worth checking out. But it's starting to creep up in price, like we said, and can be pretty hard to come by these days.
Finally, we have Cold Fear for the Xbox and PS2 platform.
This game just missed out when we did our 5 PS2 survival horror games that you might have missed, so we had to make sure it was in this list. It's such a great game, I really love it.
We actually originally heard about this game from one of our favourite YouTubers. You may have heard of him, Metal Jesus. He is absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't heard about him, I suggest you go and check him out because he's absolutely awesome. Yeah,
check him out. He's awesome. He's one of the best gaming YouTubers. His collection's insane. We absolutely love him. The amount of games we found out of because of that cool guy. But anyway, this game, it plays quite similar to Resident Evil 4 actually. It's quite similar in style with the over-the-shoulder like shooting style. It's set on a ship and the ship moves and everything. The game's really cool. So if you like Resident Evil 4, you'll like this. It's not like a complete clone. It stands alone as its own game. It was Ubisoft's first ever attempt at a survival horror game as well. But
they didn't actually do a bad job either.
No, they did a great job. It's a good game. I highly recommend you check this one out. I don't know if it's my favourite out of these, but I don't know which I could say is my favourite out of these. They're all great games. But yeah, Cold Fear is awesome.
Not supposed to have favourites.
Like we said, the game feels very similar to Resident Evil 4, which is in no way a bad thing. Obviously though, it's not quite on the level of Resident Evil 4, but not many games are. I really enjoyed the unique way the boat in the game moves so realistically on the waves, and the way items moved about and the waves splashed over the sides to knock you down. The game begins with a Navy SEAL team deploying on a Russian whaler, the Eastern Spirit. As the team explore the deck, they are attacked and killed by something that literally rips them apart. After this, a message is sent out for any vessels in the vicinity to investigate, which leads to the playable character Tom Hansen winding up on the ship. Your main enemies are Russian mercenaries and zombie-like creatures. This game is really cool and I love the unique physics, and it's a great experience that's definitely worth checking out. And it's also full of plenty of little jump scares.
So there you have it, guys. 5 more classic survival horror games that you may have missed for various systems. We're going to be doing loads more videos like this. You can see all the games behind us, and they also carry on the whole way around the room behind the camera that you can't see. So we've got thousands, haven't we, to go through in some of these, and hopefully give you some more hidden gems and games you may have missed to help grow your collection.
Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button, and also, if you enjoyed the videos and enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell icon to stay notified.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it, guys. We'd really appreciate the help us grow and get our channel seen by more people. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you very soon in our next video.